Here we're learning Tractate Eruvin, page Nun 50, and it's the fourth chapter. The name of the chapter is Misho Itziu, and we'll start from the top. Omar Rabbo, my time of the Rav. What is Rav's reason for ruling that he does not acquire residence anywhere under the tree? We said if somebody notices a tree from far, or he knows about a tree, and he say it gets dark, it's Shabbos. It's now he knows that he's walking and he sees it's getting dark. So he says, "I'm going to establish my residence underneath that tree." The Mishnah tells us he said nothing. If he says underneath the tree, if he says in Beikor Shalei, it's in by the middle of the trunk, it's fine. He gets 2,000 amas up to that tree, and from that tree another 2,000 amas. He's really good. He's doing okay. But if he says underneath the tree, beneath the tree, he said nothing. The question is why. So the Gemara answers, my time of the Rav, the Gemara says Mishum Delay Mesayim Asre, because his 4 amma area is not defined. When you say beneath the tree, your 4 ammas, your personal space, so to speak, in 4 amas is not defined. My time of the Rav, Mishum de Kasova Kol She'eino Bazeh Achar Zeh, because he holds that whatever legal situations cannot take effect consecutively, afilu bevasachas eino, it cannot take effect even simultaneously.
So if we can't take one after the other and not together, I don't get it. All right, let's see what they say.
Look at number 3. It says, according to this version, Rav's understanding is that when one declares his residence to be beneath the tree that covers several 4 amas area without specifying which 4 amma area he wishes, is actually designating every 4 amma unit under the tree as his residence. However, the law allows a person to establish only a single 4 amma area as his residence, and once designated, he can no longer establish his second residence. He can therefore not designate more than one residence even simultaneously. If he does, none of the designations are valid. So it has to be, you have to be specific. That's really what it is. When you say beneath the tree, there's too many 4 amas, that it's too many possibilities. Yeah. When you say in the trunk of the tree, you make it very specific.
Right. Okay, I got it.
So that's why it means, because he holds that whatever legal situations cannot take effect consecutively, cannot take effect even simultaneously. My benayu, ika benayu. What is the practical between these 2 versions? The Omar liknu li ba'arba amis migei shmeina. Let me acquire residence in 4 amas of these 8 amas. There's 8, but let me acquire only 4 out of the 8. Man the Omar, the one who says that Rav invalidates the designation Mishum Delay Mesayim Asre, because his 4 amma area was not defined. All of Mesayim Asre, here too, his 4 amma area was not defined, and this declaration is therefore ineffective. Uman de Omar, and according to the one who says that Rav invalidates the designation, Mishum Kol She'eino Bazeh Achar Zeh, because of the rule that whatever legal situation cannot take effect consecutively, afilu bevasachas, cannot take effect even simultaneously. I ka'arba amas domi. This resembles a case in which he designated a single Shabbos residence of 4 amas. For here he said 4 amas of these 8. Since he designated only one residence, Rav would concede, according to the second explanation, that the designation is effective. It says in number 5, however, since it is impossible to know which four of these 8 amas have been established as his residence, Rav would agree with Shmuel that he must measure his Techum area in each direction from the opposite end of the tree.
That was in the
But it creates a problem. Right, the Mishnah was saying that it's not good because he is not specific of where he wants to stay. The Gemara now challenges Rabba's rule from several sources. Gufa. Amar Rabba Kol Dovo Sheinu Bezach Al Zeh. Whatever legal situations cannot take effect consecutively, one after the other, afilu b'vasachas eino, cannot take effect even simultaneously. Eisi v'abayil Rabba, Abayil challenged Rabba from the following Baisa. Amar b'maiso is one who exceeds the 10% required for Maisa. He gives more than 10%. Peroisa mesukonim, his remaining produce becomes fit for consumption. Masoitzom could call him, but his Maisa is ruined and may not be eaten. Amai, why? It says in number 6, Torah does not specify what percentage of crop should be separated as teruma. It does, however, specify the 10% of the crop be given as Maisa. Therefore, any percentage of a crop may be designated as teruma, but no more than 10% may be designated as Meiser. If more than 10% is designated, the extra produce does not attain Meiser status. This, however, does not prevent the Meiser designation from taking effect on that part of it which should have been separated. The remainder of the crop is no longer tevel, and it may be eaten. It does, however, mean that the excess Meiser that did not attain the Meiser designation remains untithed and forbidden to eat as tevel, since there is no way of determining which part of the separated portion is the Meiser and which is tevel.
So wait a minute, time out.
The Levi may not eat any of it. In 1 second, he explains it. For example, if he has 51 units of produce, okay, 51 units.
Yeah.
After designation, 1 unit as teruma,
Okay.
5 units, which is 10%, right? 10% of the 50 should be designated as Meiser. If he designates 10 units, 20% instead of 10%, the remaining 40 fit for consumption, okay?
Yeah.
However, since 5 extra units were designated, and these cannot become Meiser because they exceed the 10% limit, all 10 units separated as Meiser are considered an undefined mixture of Meiser and untithed produce. As such, all 10 remain forbidden.
Okay, well, wait a minute. Let's go back. Okay,
Very simple. He's telling you, if you give too much, it's not good.
Okay, 51. 1 goes for Truma.
That's fine. And
And 5 goes for Meiser.
but instead of giving 5, he gave 10. He gave 10, and he's now left with 40 instead of 45. He should have been left with 45. 10% of 50 is 5.
Right.
He gave 20%.
Okay, well, there's a difference. Obviously, now there's a difference between Meiser and Tzedakah.
We're not talking about tzedakah.
No, I know we're not.
Obligation of.
So if you're gonna, okay, so if you okay, here's my 45. Good. Now.
But it's not. He gave 40. He gave 10. He gave 10
not,
units.
He had to keep 45 in this scenario.
Right, but he's keeping only 40, so therefore the whole 10 that he gave, he messed them up. So he says all 10 units separated as Meiser are considered undefined mixture of Meiser and untithed produce. As such, all 10 remain forbidden.
This is a case of being over smart. That's Rabbi Menashe.
Amai, the Gemara says, Lema, let us say that kol sheinu b'zeh achar zeh afilu v'asach zeinu. Whatever cannot take effect one after the other, b'zeh achar zeh, Afilu b'basar hazeno cannot take effect even simultaneously. Now, since Meiser cannot be separated twice from the same produce, designating more than 10% at one time should invalidate the designation completely, and all the produce should remain unfit for consumption. According to Rabba's rule, if you look at number 8, it says, according to Rabba's rule, since both designations cannot take effect, neither takes effect. But the Rabbah rules, but the Brisa rules that the remaining produce is fit for consumption, making it clear that the Maisa designation took effect for the 10% that was eligible to become Maisa. So in really telling you, although you messed it up, the Maisa itself is a problem. The 10 units that you put aside is a problem. The 40 that you left, you can eat them. The remaining produce is fit for consumption. So why over here, in trying to connect it to the case of Eruv, not really Eruv, but where he designates a large area and we're not sure which one is what, why in that case it would be a problem? It would not be good. The Gemara says Meiser and Shabbos residence, establishing Shabbos residence is different. Shani Meiser the Isachatzon. Meiser is different in that it can take effect for halves. Halves, meaning halves of fruits. It says now on any fraction of fruits or grains. For if one said, let half of each grain of wheat be sanctified as Maisa, the halves become sanctified. Since this is possible, we assume that anyone who designates more than 10% of his produce as Maisa actually intends to designate only that part of each kernel which caused the total to equal but not exceed 10% of his crop. When establishing a Shabbos residence, however, one must designate an undivided 4 amma area. In Maisa, you can do the division. In a Shabbos residence, you cannot. It says in 11, even if he intends to designate half of each of the 8 amas beneath the tree as his residence, the designation is invalid. We must therefore conclude that when he designated the area beneath the tree as his residence, he meant to designate every 4 amma area as his residence, which violates Rabba's rule. The Gemara now quotes a different statement of Rabba in which he seems to contradict his own rule. But there is the law of Meiser of animals, which cannot take effect for halves. So Meiser Behema, which cannot take effect for halves of animals. You can say half the animal is Meiser. That's when you have 10, let's say 10 baby goats, 10 kids. And the Assyria Kodesh, you said the 10th one is becoming holy, right? They have to pass through the pen. And the 10th one, you mark it and becomes holy. You can't just say half of it is holy, half of it is not.
Right.
Two exited simultaneously, Kohen Asiri, and the owner designated them as 10th. Asiri ve'achadasar merovin zeh b'zeh. The 10th and the 11th animal are intermingled. Both are consecrated. One is Meiser, and the other one is Shlomim. And each must be treated with the stringencies of both classifications of Meiser and Shlomim. But what happened? What did they do? How you had lots of goats, baby sheep, and you wanted a Meiser, so you you had a guy that in the pen pushes the goats to come out,
Right.
but it was a narrow
You count
opening.
10 and boom.
Narrow opening.
Right.
But what happened if two of them got into, as the 10th and the 11th are coming together,
Right.
and they were somehow able to squeeze and they went through the opening.
So they're both Kodesh.
So one is becoming Maisa, one becomes Shlomim.
Ah,
They're both Kodesh, like you said, but one is Shlomim, one is Maisa.
okay.
However, according to Rabba's rule, we should say that since if he were to designate the two animals as 10th, one after the other, the second designation should not be valid.
Right.
Then when he designates both animals as 10th simultaneously, neither designation should take effect, and both animals should remain unconsecrated. The Gemara again says, Shani Maisa Beima is different. The Isei Bezeach al Zebetos. In as much as it may take effect for two animals consecutively in the case of an error, Disnan, Korol Latshia Siri, for we learned in a Mishnah, this is the Gemara in Bochis in 68, if he called the 9th one the 10th one by mistake, or he called the 10th one 9th one, Ulachad Asa or Siri on the 11th one he called the 10th, Shloishtan Mekudoshim, the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th, they're all sanctified. If a guy is not good with numbers, he did not count well, and the 10th one he called the 10th, the 11th, the 9th he called the 10th, the 10th he called the 9th, and the 11th he called the...
When you get older, it can happen more.
Maybe he had a few lechaims before.
Yeah.
The 9th he called the 10th he called the 9th, the 11th he called the 10th again. So all of them are Kudoshin. The Gemara says, "V'arei toido deleisa betos," but there is a case of a toda offering whose erroneous consecration is ineffective. If somebody made a mistake, consecrated toida, it's ineffective. V'leisa b'zechar zeh, and whose consecration cannot take effect for two groups of 40 loaves consecutively. Korban toida. Look at 22 and 23. Actually, today we don't say mizmor l'toida.
Right.
Because they didn't have, remember we learned they didn't have enough time
Right.
to eat it by the night. There's a limited time to eat.
So the night.
Pesach we don't say it because they require bread, chametz.
Right.
But now it's because it's... So what happened with Toido? 24 says once the designated loaves have been consecrated by the Toida's slaughter, designate another 40 loaves to serve as the loaves of these Toida is ineffective. So what does it show you? That the designation takes effect with the Shechita. After the Shechita, it's too late to designate another 40 loaves. I believe we learned it in Zvochim that about Korban Toida that the first 10 how they were made matzah and the other ones were made as chametz. If a Toida offering was slaughtered with a complement of 80 loaves instead of 50. Chizkiah said 40 of those loaves become consecrated. 40 out of 80. 40 out of 80 is consecrated. Rabbi Yochanan said, no, nothing is holy. 40 of these 80 loaves do not become consecrated with it. None at all become consecrated. We see from this that although once 40 loaves have been consecrated by the slaughter of the Toida, it is impossible to consecrate another 44. Chizkiah nonetheless rules that if one has 80 loaves and consecrates them simultaneously by slaughtering the Toida, 40 do become consecrated. Aitmar lo, It has been said regarding the dispute between Rizki and Rabbi Yechon Omar B'Zeiro. Everyone agrees where he said at the time of Taita's slaughter, let 40 of the 80 loaves be consecrated, the Kodshe, that they become consecrated. Since he intended that only 40 loaves accompany the Taita, his consecration is valid. Let 40 not be consecrated unless all 80 become consecrated. No one disputes that none of them become consecrated. Ki pligi b'stama, where they disagree is where nothing was specified. But we assume he intends the 40 extra loaves as alternates, in case the first 40 should be lost or disqualified. Val tenai aisinu, and is bringing them on that condition. While the other master, Rabbi Yochanan, holds that we assume he intends a large offering of 80 loaves. Since no more than 40 loaves may accompany a Taida, the consecration is totally invalid, and not even 40 are consecrated. So we assume that he intends a large offering of 80 loaves. It's no more than 40 loaves may accompany a Taida, the whole thing is invalid. That's why it says, is saying, meaning sometimes by adding you are not helping the situation, you're subtracting. Moisif, you're adding, it says 80 loaves, not 40 loaves. It says no, there's a limit on 40 loaves, you can't make 80 loaves now. The Gemara now returns to qualify Rav's ruling that a person who declares an undefined area under a tree to be his Shabbos residence has said nothing at all and is left without any residence. Rav's ruling was not taught except in the case of a tree that has an area of 12 amos beneath it. Except in the case of a tree that has an area of 12 amos beneath it. But in the case of a tree that does not have 12 amos beneath it, a portion of his residence is recognizable. A portion of his residence is recognizable, defined beneath this tree. Remember, talking about a tree that doesn't have beneath it 12 amos. If we divide this area into 3 sections of 4 amos each, the 2 outer sections must overlap the middle section. And the middle section therefore contains at least a portion of his 4 amos residence, regardless of which 4 amos are his. The Gemara now challenges Abai's basic premise that knowing that a part of his residence is somewhere within the middle 4 amos suffices. Maskiv Ravuna by Rabbi Yeshua, the son of Rabbi Yeshua, objected. On what basis do you say that the middle 4 amos are defined as his residence? Perhaps the 4 amos at one end of the tree or the other end are the defined sections. Since there is nothing legally significant about the middle 4 amos, knowing that part of his residence falls somewhere within them is not sufficient to make his residence defined. Rav Huna, the son of Rabbi Yeshua, therefore qualifies Rav's statement differently. Therefore Rav Huna, the son of Rabbi Yeshua, said, Rav's ruling was not taught except in the case of a tree has an area of 8 amis beneath it. In the case of a tree that has an area of just 7 amis beneath it, a portion of its residence is recognizable beneath the tree, and a Shabbos residence is established. Since the area contains less than 8 amis, any division
divided into four units. Necessity. Okay, so it's
into 4 amis units necessitates having the units
he has
overlap
one
at least
amma,
partially.
That's for sure is for his tchum. I got it. You see, you have this picture at the bottom there. Here.
Yeah, you see 4 on each side.
Right. No, but it overlaps. That's the point. And there's a total of 7.
Right.
So one amma has to be
The actual trunk.
Has to, no matter how you cut it, is part of so that's definable. And that's what.
So the Gemara concludes that Rav invalidates the designation of an area 8 or more amis wide as Shabbos residence, as we saw above. Shmuel considers such designation valid, but measures a tchum area in either direction from the far end of the tree. The Gemara now quotes a Brisa support each of these views. Tanya Kavah said the Rav, a Brisa supports the view of Rav. Tanya Kavah said the Shmuel, and Brisa supports the view of Shmuel. Tanya Kavah said the Rav, Mishobader Chosh Cholei, one who was traveling on Friday afternoon, it was becoming dark too quickly for him to reach home before the Shabbos. And he knew of a tree or fence which was within the 2,000 amis of both his house and his present location. And he said, let my Shabbos residence be beneath it. He has said nothing. However, if he said, let my Shabbos residence be in such and such a place, defining a specific area within 2,000 amis of himself as his Shabbos residence, he may travel until he reaches that place. Once he reaches that place, he may travel throughout the area. And beyond it, an additional 2,000 amis. When is this rule said that he may travel throughout his designated area and receives another 2,000 amis beyond it? Only when he designated his residence in a place clearly defined and set apart from the surrounding area by partitions, such as he made his residence on a mound that is at least 10 tefachim high, and its area is between 4 amis and Beisea, and so too if he designated as his residence a valley 10 tefachim deep, and its area is between 4 amis and 2 Beisea. But if he designate a place not defined by natural partitions, he has only 4 amis as his residence. The Brisa digresses from its discussion of Shabbos. The Brisa now digresses from its discussion of Shabbos residence requirement to consider whether one person may authorize another to designate a Shabbos residence for him. Hoyu shnaim, if there are 2 travelers, echad makir ve'echad she'eino makir, one of whom knows a landmark which he can use to establish a Shabbos residence, and one of whom does not know of such a landmark. Right? One knows and one doesn't know where to stop. The one who doesn't know the landmark location assigns the fixing of his residence to the one who knows its location, and the one who knows says, "Let my Shabbos residence be in such and such a place." The Gemara returns to qualify the rule if he declared his residence to be in an area undefined by legally valid partitions. He requires a Shabbos residence of 4 ames and a techum of 2,000. He acquires a Shabbos residence of 4 ames and a techum of 2,000 ames. Remember that always the issue is with undefined 4 ames. If it's undefined,
And you can't do anything.
when he clearly defined the 4 ames, but if he did not clearly define the 4 ames, he meant to establish as his residence, he may not move from his present location. So the last clause of this Baisa supports Rav's ruling that an undefined designation is completely ineffective. And to refute Shmuel's position that it establishes a Shabbos residence somewhere within the undefined area, the Gemara asks, Lema tehevet you to the Shmuel. Shall we say that this Baisa is a refutation of Shmuel's position? Omar Shmuel. Shmuel would respond that this Baisa does not refute his position because maskinan, here in the Baisa we are dealing with a case in which there is a distance from the place where he is standing to the tree trunk which he designated as his residence of 2,004 ames. So if you locate his Shabbos residence on the opposite side of the tree, he is presently located beyond the techum of his residence. Therefore, if he clearly defined as his residence 4 ames that are within reach of his present location, his designation is effective and he may go there. And if not, if he did not define which 4 ames beneath the tree are his residence, he may not go there because it is possible that his 4 ame area is on the far side of the tree beyond his reach. Tanya would say the Shmuel. The Gemara quotes a Baisa which supports Shmuel's view. The Baisa discusses a case in which a person attempted to establish an Eruv in 2 different locations. Again, it's undefined because he's doing it in 2 locations. Tanya said the Shmuel, if one erred and placed an Eruv each of 2 different directions, is believing that an Eruv may be established in 2 directions. Or if he said to his servants, go and establish an Eruv for me. And one of them placed an Eruv for him to the north. And one placed an Eruv for him to the south. He may travel to the north only so far as his Eruv to the south. He may travel to the north only so far as his Eruv to the south allows. And he may travel to the south only as far
So by being a wise guy, he ends up with 1,000 on each side, not 2,000.
he may travel to the south, right? Only as so far as his Eruv to the north allowed. And if the 2 established Techum boundaries which do not overlap but have him at the center point between the two Techum areas, he may not move from his place. See the diagram, interesting.
That's what it says, what I just...
Although he intends to establish two Eruvs, only one is actually valid, but we do not know which. Therefore, he is restricted to the area which is included in the Techum area of both. If an Eruv was placed 1,000 amas to the south of his home, and another Eruv was placed 1,000 amas to the north, he may travel only within the 2,000 amas which lie between the two Eruvs. Verse 24 it says, since he does not know which Eruv took effect, he is limited to the Techum area common to both. But since the Techum areas do not overlap, he is allowed no Techum area at all. He may not even travel freely within the city. He cannot adopt the Techum of the city because his designation of an Eruv makes it clear that he did not intend to make his residence at home. The first ruling of this Brisa teaches that when a person establishes two Eruvs and it is not clear which took effect, it is nevertheless certain that one took effect. This is analogous to designating one's residence in an undefined 4 amma beneath a tree. It thus supports Shmuel's opinion that an undefined designation establishes a residence. Rav, on the other hand, held such a designation to be completely ineffective. The Gemara therefore asks, Lema tehevet yufte de Rav. Shall we say that the refutation of Rav's ruling, Rav Tana who following, Rav is a Tana and he disagrees with the Brisa. It says, while an Omeira, it says in 25, while an Omeira does not have the authority to dispute a Tanaic opinion, Rav, who lived during the transition from Tanaic to Omeiraic periods, is considered to be both a Tana and Omeira. Consequently, he has the authority to dispute the opinion of a Tana. Rav Tana who following. Rav is a Tana and he may dispute and he disagrees with the right. The Gemara introduces the next discussion with a quote from the Mishnah. Omar shvisosi beikor ma'alech u'mokim raglo v'adikor alpayim amo meikor leveis alpayim amo nimtza ma'alech mishirashecho daled alpayim amo daled alofim amo. So that's the Mishnah that gives us, if he said, let my Shabbos, that's the ultimate declaration and designation. Where he says, let my Shabbos residence be at its trunk. He may travel, that's beikore. He may travel from the place he is standing to the tree's trunk, a distance of 2,000 amas, and from the trunk to his home, another 2,000 amas. So he's able to travel after dark 4,000 amas. Okay, we'll stop over here.
All right, so this tomorrow we'll learn on our own, and then I got to get a new safer for